Hello and what is up, YouTube? It is G3 Iron, your balding bearded buddy, back to chat the opening league meta from the ongoing Settlers of Kalguur League. I had a blast playing my opening league weekend build, which is already in the mid-80s and made it to maps in good time. I'm playing a Necro build that's got Holy Relic of Conviction, and it's just as fun, if not more fun, than what it was during the Necropolis League. But enough about my build. How did your builds go? Let's take a look and see how the community's builds are going, as PoE Ninja is giving us data on the opening league weekend's ladder and choices that players are making for Ascendancies and for their skill selection. If you think that cold hard facts about player choices and data is more important than our feelings about the way how the league is going, then you can of course like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about future video discussions just like this one, where we cover league economics, where we cover build choices, and do build guide comparisons on whether or not the selections that you are making are actually going to pay off in the ways that you're hoping. Without any further ado, let's take a look at the cold hard facts. The cold hard facts across every single form of Settlers League, whether it's softcore, hardcore, or solo self-found, is that all of the basically melee-oriented Ascendancy classes from previous leagues are all on the way up in their trend, with Slayer taking the top spot in softcore Settler, Hierophant coming in the second spot, probably with a bunch of Ball Lightning builds and Ice Nova builds, Gladiator taking the third spot, Trickster taking the fourth, and Deadeye taking the fifth. In Settlers Hardcore, we've got the Gladiator coming in the top spot, then Hierophant, then Juggernaut, then Chieftain, and Slayer. Necromancer slips outside of the top 5, I believe, in Hardcore for the first time, I think, in a year over the opening weekend's meta. Then we've also got in Solo Self-Found, Gladiator, Hierophant, Slayer, Berserker, and Chieftain, and then in Hardcore Settler Solo Self-Found, Gladiator, Juggernaut, Hierophant, Berserker, and Slayer. It's pretty intriguing to see that Berserker has made such a massive resurgence. We will actually do a comparison to show you just how far Berserker has come just through this singular update in just a moment. Next up is observing what players are choosing to use on their various builds on 5+ links. Now, all this data is taken from PoE Ninja on the latest snapshot, which, just as a brief reminder, if you've never heard of it or never used it, PoE Ninja is a third-party website that pulls all of its data from public-based accounts on pathofexile.com. So if a player's got a ladder eligible character on a public-based account, then that means their data is going to show up in all of these numbers on PoE Ninja. You're going to notice some trends across the board in all 4 of these league types that we are taking a look at. Lightning Strike is going to be present across the board for the most part in all 4 different types of Path of Exile leagues, along with Ice Nova, that's going to be pretty popular across all leagues, and then Lacerate of Hemorrhaging is also pretty popular. But there are also some notable exceptions, with Hexblast coming in softcore, Sunder coming in hardcore Settlers, Power Siphon making an appearance every once in a while due to the Power Siphon Mines builds that are out there, along with some Spectral Shield Throw, because shields are just out of this world ridiculous, and a lot of players want to take advantage of the high numbers and high abilities of Block Chance and new Ascendancy options that are there with the buff to Gladiator. Overall, the biggest changes that we are seeing from Necropolis or even Affliction all the way up to now Settlers is, of course, that players are choosing to play more melee-oriented Ascendancies and are then using more melee-oriented skills. As melee as you can call some skills. I get it. Some skills are melee, but they're only, sort of melee. They've got an AoE and a range to them. But anyway, here's a comparison between Settlers and Necropolis. These are both opening league weekend snapshots of the first few days of opening weekend. In Necropolis, we had Elementalist, Sabo, Deadeye, Occultist, and Juggernaut. In hardcore Necropolis, we had Juggernaut, Sabo, Champ, Trickster, and Necro rounding out the top 5 spots. Compare that with the top 5 spots with where we're at in Settlers for softcore and hardcore. You've got a mixture of Slayer, Hierophant, Gladiator, Trickster, Chieftain, some Necro, some Jug, some Deadeye. It is a almost complete overhaul of the top 5 spots in terms of what's popular, and the popularity has gone through the roof. If you compare Elementalist at the top spot, that's the only spot that comes in higher in softcore Necropolis than popularity in Settlers. So Elementalist at 19% in Necropolis was higher than Slayer right now in softcore Settlers at 17%. But then once you swap over to the hardcore versions or the softcore versions of the leagues that we are currently in, Gladiator's at 22%. There was not a consensus during Necropolis Hardcore of that amount of the player base on opening weekend. 13% went Juggernaut, 9% went Sabo, 22% have gone Gladiator for hardcore Settlers. In solo self-found, you've got 16% in Sabo, 14% Elementalist in solo self-found, 13% Juggernaut, and then you come over to where we're at today with Settlers, and we just got 28% of the league is playing Gladiator. Like, if you did not read any of the patch notes, if you just went to sleep on like the second to last week of Necropolis and woke up today, you'd be like, what did they do to Gladiator? Did they do something to Gladiator? They must have done something to, like, does Gladiator just drop Mirrors of Calandra every time you block now? Like, chance to drop Mirrors of Calandra every time you block, because there's a massive, massive sweep. You can even say it's a red wave of Gladiators that are just taking over in reality, at least for opening weekend, and for players being excited to come back to Path of Exile for Settlers of Kalguur. To show you how far we've come from Necropolis League with just a singular patch, this is why so many of us who are chatting about Path of Exile are saying this is the best league. Like, the league mechanic is awesome, it's fun, it's engaging, but even if there was no league mechanic, this whole currency exchange has brought back a whole bunch of players, and then actually following through and not just giving like a sort of melee buff. The last time we got a melee buff, I forget which 3-teen it was, like 313, 314, 311. It ended up not being a buff. A bunch of players tried to play it, and it felt bad. Ultimately, players are actually having a consensus and a good time right now playing their block-based builds, playing their lacerate builds, playing all sorts of different, playing their Earthshatterer builds, Sunder builds, playing their builds that are more oriented towards melee gameplay. And to show you this swap, to just emphasize how big it is, in Necropolis Softcore, the bottom 5 Ascendancies over opening weekend, not counting the Shadow, the Unascended Shadow, you had 2% of the player base playing Berserker, you had 1% playing Guardian, you had 0.6% playing Chieftain, Assassin, you got 0.5% playing Chieftain, you got 0.5% playing Gladiator. Nowadays, in Softcore, you've got 12% playing Gladiator. Now, Gladiator is known and is going to be known as a more hardcore-friendly Ascendancy. But that's an 11.5% swing in the player base on opening weekend for an Ascendancy that has had a massive rework, and that rework is showing in its popularity. When you look at Hardcore, you see Gladiator was down there at 1%. Twice as many people in Hardcore, in terms of the percentages, thought Gladiator was worth it back in Necropolis. And now it's 22% of the player base is playing it in Settlers Hardcore. Then you got in the SSF world, you've just got Gladiator sitting over there and Berserk even sitting over there, the Berserker sitting over there at 2% in solo self-found softcore, and then you've got 1% sitting over at hardcore solo self-found. Now you got 7% of hardcore solo self-found players playing as Berserkers, and you've got 9% of them in softcore. It's just incredible to see. The Chieftain also has had a miraculous flop and swap, as well as the Slayer. The Slayer's not in the bottom 5, but it was close to being in the bottom 5, and now it's also up towards the top end. It's incredible to see. I want to encourage all of you. This is what Path of Exile used to be like in the golden age of Path of Exile. Every single patch and every single update, we would get kind of Ascendancy reworks or major changes that would shake up the meta, and everybody liked it. Yes, a build would get nerfed. Yes, an archetype would get changed. But for the most part, as a player base, we like trying new things, and we like experiencing power in a different form of pixels exploding on our screen and loot dropping and going into our stash tab. We enjoy that. And so it seems like across the board, from all the numbers that we've got of opening league weekend meta, now we have got a massive success. This doesn't even bring into account yet player numbers and Steam data. I'm going to get to that in a future discussion. At the moment, though, I just wanted to focus on the cold hard facts from PoE Ninja. It seems like Settlers of Kalguur, just as a patch, let alone the content of the actual league, as a patch, it has been successful and players are enjoying it. Well, I'd love to hear down below in the comments, how did your opening weekend go? I shared a little bit about mine. I'm already into red maps with my mid-80s level Necromancer that's enjoying Holy Relic of Conviction, and I'm just purchasing upgrades as I can get them. I'm enjoying the currency exchange house. Faustus is my new favorite NPC, and King's March has been a delight to figure out and to go through all of the processes of seeing my little town growing and sending corn to all sorts of places and bars and ore, and just having a great time watching that thing grow. And it really doesn't disrupt or interrupt anything going on with the rest of my gameplay, so I'm really enjoying that part. But how about for you? Have you made a pivot with your build? Maybe you league started one thing and then you decided, you know what, this actually isn't as good as I thought. Maybe you league started with one particular Ascendancy and you're using the new gold respec mechanics to be able to change onto another Ascendancy because you see something that's more popular or that's simply easier than whatever road you initially started out with on your league starter. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know your opening weekend story. Hopefully one or two of you will have had a Mirror of Calandra drop for you, or maybe you brought it back in one of your shipping containers. Anyway, that's all from me today. I hope the ongoing 325 Settlers of Kalguur League is the league. A Mirror of Calandra drops for you.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.